The galaxy watched in silence as the execution was broadcast across Imperial space. The cold blue glow of the hollow screens illuminated thousands gathered in the grand plaza of Xiphos Prime, the heart of the Galactic Empire. On a raised platform, under the watchful eyes of towering Imperial sentinels, General Arthur Graves stood with his hands bound behind him, his once pristine uniform torn and blood-stained. His face, hardened by years of war, remained defiant. Across the vast reaches of space, on Earth's military command deck, Admiral Marcus Steele clenched his fists as he watched the scene unfold. Around him, the war room buzzed with hushed murmurs, disbelief rippling through the ranks. Graves was no ordinary officer. He was a legend, a man who had fought and bled for humanity's place among the stars. Now, he stood alone, facing the cruel judgment of an empire that saw Earth as nothing more than an upstart species in need of taming. A sharp voice cut through the plaza. Lord Cale Veros, the Emperor's enforcer, stepped forward. His crimson robe swayed as he raised his hand to quiet the gathered masses. His face, pale and angular, bore no trace of emotion as he addressed both the crowd and the unseen millions watching across the empire. Arthur Graves, General of the Terran forces, you stand guilty of crimes against the Empire. You led the slaughter of our vanguard on Draken 5. You ordered the destruction of Imperial research facilities, setting our advancements back decades. You refused to kneel when given the chance to surrender with dignity. Graves remained silent, his sharp eyes locked onto Veros. For your defiance, your people will learn a lesson they will never forget. Today, the Empire demonstrates the price of rebellion. Veros gestured, and the executioner, a towering alien clad in dark armor, tightened the noose around Graves' neck. The crowd stood motionless, breaths held in collective anticipation. From the war room, Admiral Steele's voice was a low growl. We should have extracted him. There was no window. Colonel John Reynolds, leader of Earth's elite Black Ops, replied grimly. He was bait. If we moved, we'd have lost more. Steele didn't answer. His jaw tightened as the executioner pulled the lever. The trapdoor beneath Graves opened. His body dropped. The rope snapped taut. A sudden gust of wind swept through the plaza. The banners of the Galactic Empire fluttered as the last breath left the general's body. His eyes, once full of fire, were now empty. The silence was absolute. Then Lord Veros turned to face the hollow cameras. Let this be a warning. Earth is but an ember waiting to be snuffed out. Defy us again, and the next to fall will not be a soldier. It will be your cities. The transmission cut. A deep, chilling stillness settled over the war room. Every officer, every soldier, every strategist who had watched the execution stood motionless. Then Steele spoke, his voice ice cold. Get me the president. A murmur of acknowledgement followed as communication officers scrambled. The room, moments ago stunned into silence, now crackled with raw, undiluted fury. The president's face flickered onto the main screen. You saw it? Steele asked. The president nodded, his expression grim. I saw it. Then we're done talking. The words carried a finality that sent a ripple through every man present. They had lost one of their best, but the war had not ended. No, the war had just begun. Steele's next command rang across the room. Initiate Operation Ragnarok. Across Earth orbital fleets. Across the military bases hidden beneath the surface of Mars. Across the distant colonies of Titan and Europa, a single order cascaded through encrypted channels. Ships powered up. Weapons systems primed. Squadrons were scrambled. And at that moment, the Galactic Empire, in all its arrogance, had no idea of the storm that was coming. The silence before war was always the heaviest. Admiral Marcus Steele stood at the helm of U.S. Space Command, his gaze fixed on the vast holographic display that stretched across the war room. Blue icons represented Earth's forces, battleships, carriers, mechanized divisions, while red markers denoted every known Imperial fleet, station, and stronghold. His jaw was set, his expression carved from stone. The weight of humanity's vengeance rested on his shoulders, and he bore it without hesitation. "Status?" he asked. Across the command table, General Thomas Whitaker, Supreme Commander of Earth's military forces, exhaled slowly before responding. "The 7th Fleet is fully mobilized. Every available warship, from the Mars Defense Perimeter to the Titan Orbital Guard, is en route to staging points. The 82nd Orbital Drop Division and the Spaceborne Ranger Corps are already prepping for deployment." Steele nodded, and the Black Ops teams, Colonel John Reynolds, the leader of Earth's most elite Special Operations Force, folded his arms. "On standby. We have infiltration routes mapped for Zerath 9, Xiphos Prime, and the Imperial shipyards on Draken 5. Just give the word." The war room buzzed with focused energy. Strategists coordinated fleet movements. Intelligence officers sifted through intercepted Imperial transmissions, and engineers finalized loadouts for the weapons that would soon rain hell upon the enemy. At the far end of the table, Major Ethan Carter, a hardened Marine commander, leaned in. "The men are ready, sir. They saw what the Empire did to Graves. No one's holding back." His voice was laced with something fierce, something primal. "We're going to make them regret ever touching one of ours." Steele's voice was quiet but sharp. "They already do. They just don't know it yet." The countdown to war had begun. Across the solar system, Earth's military machine roared to life. Deep beneath the U.S. Lunar Command Center, automated factories worked at full capacity, churning out state-of-the-art exomechs, railgun batteries, and drone swarms. Orbital shipyards above Mars deployed the latest Aegis-class destroyers, each equipped with armor designed to withstand Imperial plasma weaponry. Troop carriers loaded up with battle-hardened soldiers, each man fueled by a singular purpose: vengeance. On the ground, the final war council convened. The president stood at the center, flanked by military leaders and intelligence chiefs. A large, transparent display hovered above the table, showing the 3 primary targets of Operation Ragnarok. 1. Zerath 9, the Imperial outpost where Graves had been executed, a symbolic strike to start the war. 2. Draken 5, a critical shipyard supplying the Empire's war machine. 3. Xiphos Prime, the Galactic Empire's capital, where humanity's flag would one day fly. The president spoke, his voice calm but unwavering. "We are not just retaliating. We are eliminating a threat to our existence. Make no mistake, this is total war. The Empire will show no mercy. Neither will we." A solemn nod passed between the men in the room. There was no hesitation, no doubt. The time for words had passed. Above Earth, the USS Warbringer, the most powerful dreadnought ever built by human hands, prepared to lead the charge. Its captain, Ryan Caldwell, stood on the bridge, watching as smaller escort ships took formation around the behemoth vessel. He tapped into the fleet-wide channel. His voice transmitted to every soldier, every pilot, every officer preparing for the campaign ahead. "This is Captain Caldwell of the Warbringer. You all know why we're here. The Empire believes it can execute our people and walk away unscathed. They think they can intimidate us. They think they can break us. They are wrong. We are humanity. We do not kneel. We do not surrender. And tonight, we remind the galaxy why." A deafening aura erupted through the comms as tens of thousands of soldiers responded. The countdown reached 0. Engines ignited. Fleet drives roared to life. The first wave of ships surged forward, tearing through the void toward Zerath 9. From the shadows of deep space, Imperial watch stations detected the approaching armada. Alarms blared. Officers scrambled. Messages were sent up the chain of command. But it was too late. The storm had arrived. The Empire struck back with fire and fury. From the cold abyss of deep space, Admiral Dre Van Cor watched the battle unfold from the bridge of his flagship, the ISS Dominion. A towering figure clad in the midnight black uniform of the Imperial fleet, Corps' expression was unreadable as his officers scrambled around him, relaying reports, issuing commands, and coordinating the counterattack. The Terrans had been bold, foolishly so. Their forces had torn through the outer defenses of Zaraf 9, razing the stronghold where their fallen general had been executed. Now, they believed themselves untouchable. That illusion was about to be shattered. "The fleet is in position," one of his lieutenants reported, sweat glistening on his brow. "Your orders, sir?" Corps did not answer immediately. Instead, he studied the tactical display, his sharp eyes locked onto the blue indicators of the Terran armada. The humans had moved swiftly, with a level of precision that was unexpected. Their technology had advanced beyond previous assessments, their tactics unpredictable. And worst of all, they fought without hesitation, as if driven by something deeper than mere strategy. Vengeance. Corps exhaled slowly. Let them rage. Let them burn. In the end, the Empire was eternal. He turned to his officers. Initiate the Scorched Earth Protocol. Wipe out their colonies. Burn their supply lines. Let them see what it means to wage war against the Empire. A cruel smile played at the corner of his lips. Start with Titan, far across the system, above the icy surface of Saturn's largest moon. The Titan defense fleet received a distress signal just moments before the sky ignited. Commander Ryan Caldwell, stationed aboard the USS Defiant, barely had time to issue a warning before the first wave of Imperial dreadnoughts emerged from hyperspace. They came like wraiths, silent, relentless, unstoppable. Within seconds, the vacuum of space roared with the blinding glow of plasma fire. The first salvo struck the orbital platforms, tearing through titanium hulls as if they were paper. Explosions blossomed across the station's surface, oxygen venting into the void, sending bodies spiraling into the abyss. Caldwell braced himself as the Defiant took a direct hit, alarms blaring through the bridge. "Shields down to 40%, a lieutenant shouted. Caldwell gritted his teeth. Damn it, they came prepared. Return fires. Railguns thundered. A swarm of Hunter-class interceptors launched from the hangar, engaging enemy fighters in a deadly dance of fire and steel. The defenders fought with the desperation of men who knew they would not live to see another dawn. Titan was a vital colony, a key strategic outpost. They could not afford to lose it, but the Empire had come in overwhelming force. From the planet's surface, Major Ethan Carter and his battalion of Marines watched in horror as the sky burned. The ground trembled with distant impacts as debris rained down, the shattered remains of Earth's fleet falling like dying stars. Carter activated his calm command. "This is Echo 1. Titan is under full-scale assault. We need immediate reinforcements or we won't hold." The response came seconds later, calm despite the chaos. "Negative, Echo 1. Reinforcements are tied up at Ganymede. You hold." Carter exhaled sharply. Of course. They were alone. He turned to his men, their armor coated in frost, weapons clutched tight. Marines never ran. Marines never surrendered. He raised his rifle, his voice steady despite the firestorm above them. "We make them pay for every inch." The ground battle erupted. Imperial shock troopers descended in waves, drop pods slamming into the frozen terrain, their crimson armor a stark contrast against the ice. Plasma bolts screamed through the air as human and alien forces clashed in brutal, close-quarters combat. The snow ran red. Carter fought like a man possessed. His knife found gaps in armor. His rifle never missed. His brothers fell around him, but still, he stood. But Titan was dying, and deep in the heart of the battle, Admiral Corps watched from orbit, satisfied. Titan's defenses are collapsing, his tactical officer confirmed. Corps clasped his hands behind his back. Then proceed with planetary bombardment. From the depths of the ISS Dominion, massive planetary siege cannons powered up. In the final moments before hellfire rained down, Major Carter raised his eyes to the heavens, breathing heavily as his wounded men gathered around him. He could hear the distant whine of the descending bombardment, the final drumbeat of an unwinnable battle. He activated his comm one last time, voice grim. "Tell them we fought." The sky erupted in fire. Titan was gone. Far away, in the war room of U.S. Space Command, Admiral Steele stood frozen as the data came through. The colony was lost. Hundreds of thousands of civilians gone. The fleet destroyed. The first true blow of the war had been struck, and humanity had bled for it. The war was no longer about revenge. Now, it was survival. The weight of Titan's loss pressed heavily on every man who remained. The Empire had proven its ruthlessness, reducing the colony to fire and ash. But Earth did not break. No! The flames of destruction only hardened their resolve. The time for defensive maneuvers was over. Humanity would strike back, not just with rage, but with precision. The war was about to turn. Admiral Marcus Steele stood at the helm of U.S. Space Command, his jaw set as he studied the latest reports. Titan was gone. Ganymede barely held. The outer colonies were in chaos. If the Empire kept this momentum, Earth itself would be next. The room around him buzzed with frantic activity. Officers coordinating supply lines, strategists calculating countermeasures. But Steele silenced it all with a single word. Enough. The command room stilled. Every eye turned to him. Steele's voice was low, controlled, but beneath it lay the force of an oncoming storm. We cannot fight this war the way they expect. We cannot meet them head-on and bleed ourselves dry. If we do, we lose. We need something more. His gaze swept the room, landing on Colonel John Reynolds, Earth's most lethal operative. "How long until your team is ready?" Reynolds didn't hesitate. "We're ready now." That was all Steele needed. Moments later, deep within the warship USS Warbringer, Reynolds and his Black Ops strike team gathered around a holographic display of the mission ahead. Their target, the Imperial Citadel on Xiphos Prime, the heart of the Empire, where Lord Kale Varos himself orchestrated the war. The objective was clear: assassinate Varos, shatter the Empire's command structure, throw their fleets into disarray. Reynolds studied his men, all hardened veterans of countless battles. No second chances, no retreat. Either they succeeded or they didn't come back. The insertion was brutal. Their stealth craft barely avoided detection as it slipped through the planetary defense grid, descending into the darkened cityscape of Xiphos Prime. The capital was a fortress, crawling with Imperial sentinels, but the team moved like ghosts, silent, lethal, unseen. Inside the Citadel, Lord Kale Varos stood within his private chamber, unaware of the blades closing in around him. He had spent the last weeks orchestrating the systematic dismantling of Earth's defenses, and now he believed humanity was on the verge of collapse. He did not anticipate the reckoning that had come for him. Reynolds struck first. A single suppressed shot eliminated the guards at the entrance. The team breached the chamber, moving with ruthless efficiency. Varos barely had time to draw his blade before Reynolds was on him, slamming him against the marble wall, a combat knife pressed against his throat. "For Graves," Reynolds growled, but Varos only smiled. "You think killing me will change anything?" Reynolds didn't waste words. The knife found its mark. The war had changed. Alarms blared through the Citadel as the team exfiltrated, but it was too late. Across the Empire, panic spread. With Varos dead, Imperial command fractured. Fleet movement stalled. Confusion reigned. The once invincible war machine had been dealt a fatal wound. Back aboard the Warbringer, Admiral Steele received the confirmation. A slow, grim smile formed. The tide had turned. Now, Earth was coming for them. The final battle came swiftly, like a storm that had been gathering for too long. With Lord Kale Varos dead, the Empire reeled. Their fleets, once a force of unbreakable precision, faltered as rival commanders vied for control. Conflicting orders spread through their ranks, hesitation seeping into once unshakable discipline. And in that hesitation, Earth struck. Admiral Marcus Steele stood aboard the USS Warbringer, watching as the largest fleet humanity had ever assembled prepared for its final push. The war had cost them dearly. Titan was lost. Countless soldiers had fallen, but now they had momentum. The last Imperial stronghold, the fortress world of Draken 5, was all that remained between humanity and victory. Status? Steele asked, his voice even. Fleet is in formation. Captain Ryan Caldwell responded. The Warbringer leads the charge. Ground forces are standing by. Once we break their defenses, the Marines will finish this. Steele nodded. Then let's end this war. The order was given. The battle began. Human warships surged forward, railguns and missile barges tearing into Imperial dreadnoughts. Fighters weaved through the chaos, exchanging fire in deadly spirals. The void burned with the fury of two civilizations locked in their final struggle. On the surface of Draken 5, Major Ethan Carter and his Marines stormed the capital city. The Imperial High Command, the last governing body of the fractured empire, had fortified themselves within a towering citadel. But Earth soldiers had come too far to stop now. They pushed forward, every step paid for in blood. Carter led the charge, his rifle cutting down enemy troops as he forced his way into the citadel. The corridors were a maze of gunfire and desperation, Imperial officers making their last stand. But one by one they fell. When Carter finally breached the command chamber, he found them. Imperial warlords and admirals, their faces pale, their arrogance gone. The war was over, and they knew it. "On your knees," Carter ordered, his voice like steel. One by one, they surrendered. Above, in orbit, the Imperial fleet crumbled. Without leadership, their final defenses collapsed. The last dreadnought, the ISS Dominion, attempted to flee, but Captain Caldwell and the Warbringer ensured it never made it past the planet's atmosphere. A final railgun volley tore through its hull, sending it spiraling into the surface below. And then there was silence. The war was won. Days later, aboard Earth's flagship, Steele, Reynolds, Caldwell, and Carter stood together, watching the stars beyond the viewport. There was no celebration, no cheers of victory, only quiet reflection. The cost had been high, but humanity had endured. Reynolds broke the silence first. "So what now?" Steele exhaled, his gaze still on the void. "We rebuild. We remember." Caldwell crossed his arms. "And the Empire?" Carter's voice was cold. "They won't rise again." For the first time in history, humanity was not just surviving. They were the rulers of the stars.